Hey guys, Eighth Echo here. Today we're going to be going over the which cards to disenchant the neutral common cards. I know that I might not have stated it on the previous video, but I know some of the cards you can't disenchant. So primarily I'm going to focus on the ones you shouldn't disenchant, and then everything else can be disenchanted. So I'll bring up the list right here. You can take a look at it. Everything I've marked with a red dot, you should keep it. You should definitely keep it. It makes it into more than one deck. They're very popular cards. Double red dot means you should absolutely keep them. They're used in many, many decks. Blue dots are keepers. You shouldn't get rid of them. You should have them on your bench and make it into a couple decks here and there. Not too often though, but you'll still need to have them to make decks. And then the yellow dots, there's a lot of yellow dots this time. The yellow dots will be the on the fence cards, where I only found one deck, maybe two decks that would use them on a regular basis, but usually it's one deck. You can take a look at them here. Everything that is not posted on this list can be disenchanted. You can make an argument for some of the cards, but the other cards rarely make it into one deck, or they don't make it into a deck at all. Most of the times they don't make it into a deck because there's a better option for it now. Alright, with that said, with the list gone, you can go back to it. Now we'll go over the each individual card and the reasoning behind the different color dots, whether it's a must-have, a keeper, or a on-the-fence kind of card that you could possibly disenchant in a pinch. So the first card that we're going to be looking at here, we'll just go in ascending mana cost. So we'll start with the Abusive Sergeant. I believe this card is a must-keep. He makes it into a lot of aggro decks. He's a good one-drop. He gives a +2 attack to the should highlight it. Gives +2 attack to a minion. It's essentially like a 4/1 for 1 mana. It's really good. He makes it into aggro decks. You should keep him around. Excuse me. Clockwork Gnome is used in mech decks as the 1-drop. Mech decks are usually tempo oriented or aggro, so Clockwork Gnome fits into many mech decks. Cogmaster, I put as on the fence. Only certain decks use Cogmaster in their mech deck. He can be really good or he can be really bad. He's usually in more aggro-oriented mech decks. Alright, the Leper Gnome is used in very aggro-oriented decks. He makes it into the aggro face hunter deck. He'll make it into more aggro-oriented zoo decks. Keep him around. He's a good card. Good 1-drop for aggro decks. South Sea Deckhand. He's kind of a niche card. You see him occasionally in combo rogue decks where they use Cold Blood and Faceless, but you could disenchant him if you really had to. Worgen Infiltrator is kind of same case. He only really fits into the aggro face hunter deck. You don't really see him used outside of that deck. Zombie Chow is a very, very popular 1-drop. Probably should have put 2 red dots on him. He's used for control decks. He makes it into all different kinds of decks. It's a 2... Oops, should be highlighting. I'm sorry, I forgot again. He's a 2/3 for 1 mana, restore 5 health to enemy hero. That doesn't mean anything if you're trying to control the match. So, Zombie Chow is a very popular card. Alright, so moving on, we have the Acidic Swamp Ooze. I marked him as a keeper, or a must keep, but he could probably just be a keeper. This card is a meta play. Depends on if you're facing a lot of weapons that day, and if you are, he occasionally makes it into your deck. Harrison Jones is more favored, but if your deck isn't rounded properly, I guess what I'm saying, like if you're top heavy and you're trying to play a Harrison Jones into a top heavy deck, You might be favored to play the Acidic Swamp Ooze because it's only 2 mana. You can just drop it. I've seen it play. I play Acidic Swamp Ooze in my what do you call it? Handlock deck because it makes the control warrior matchup a little bit easier. Yeah, it's a good card to keep around. Next card is Anoyotron. This is a mech card. Have I seen this in anything else other than a mech deck? Yeah, I've seen Anoyotron in Shaman decks without mechs, like, because they can buff the attack to make it like a 3/2 with a totem. But yeah, primarily Anoyotron's used in mech decks. It's a good card, hard to get through, very annoying. Bloodsail Raider is used in aggro-oriented decks. The only deck that I currently see Bloodsail Raider in now is the Paladin aggro deck, where they play True Silver and then they drop a Bloodsail Raider and give it Divine Shield or Blessing of Might or something like that. Go straight to the face. It's a niche card. It doesn't get played that often. If you have to disenchant it, you can get rid of it. Next card up is the Direwolf Alpha. He is used in Zoo primarily. Give your adjacent minions +1 attack. It's very useful. I mean, it can be used in Paladin decks with Muster for battle. Primarily, it's used in Zoo in conjunction with trading minions, like in a row down the row, so you get +1 attack on everything after you've played like Imp Explosion or something like that. We have Fairy Dragon. I marked Fairy Dragon as an on-the-fence case. It'll be used in dragon-oriented decks, but you don't really see dragon-oriented decks currently. So, you know, other than that, it's not used. Gilblin Stalker. I think I got the name right. This card is very rarely used, but occasionally you'll see. Well, I've seen priests use it, so you can get a Velen's Chosen buff on it, or you can just get a health buff on it and start building it. It's a sticky 2-drop. It's hard to remove. It's pretty good, but it gets outclassed by Haunted Creeper. This card is used in many decks that require like a sticky minion to stay on the board. Aggro Hunter uses this because it's a beast. It dies, it creates more creatures. It's just shamans use it. All different kinds of classes uses it. It's one of the go-to 2-drops out there, just because it is so sticky and it's a pain in the ass to get rid of all aspects of this card. Another card that's used a ton is the Ironbeak Owl. This is the go-to silence card. It's a 2-mana silence. Get a 2/1 owl, obviously. This is used in hunter decks. This is used in aggro decks, control decks, anything and everything. This is used in aggro decks to get through taunts. This is used in control decks to get through taunts and, you know, calm down a minion that's been buffed up too much or whatever. And yeah, it's used a lot. Next up is the Loot Hoarder. I marked Loot Hoarder as a keeper. It's used in some decks that require card draw. You might see it in a rogue deck. You might see it in a mage deck. It pops up from time to time. Good card to have on the bench. Mad Scientist, very good card. If you're playing a secret deck, you'll be playing Mad Scientist. As long as your opponent doesn't silence it, it's a 2/2 for 2, and then you get to play a secret in your deck, which is usually 1, 2, or 3 mana. Usually 2 or 3 mana, because you see Mad Scientist primarily in mage and hunter decks. Mech Warper is the basis for the mech decks. If you can get 2 Mech Warpers out onto the field and you're running a mech deck, and this accelerates the game a lot for you. Even if you hit, like, a common play would be Mech Warper plus Anoyotron on turn 3. to set up for the following turn to play something even bigger or play another Mech Warper, it can get out of control pretty quick. This is the main card, I believe, in Mech deck. So, Novice Engineer, marked as on the fence. She doesn't really get played over Loot Hoarder. If your deck is like you really need to heavily draw cards, kind of like what is it, like Freeze Mage? Although Freeze Mage doesn't even play this card, so this card is now outclassed by Loot Hoarder. People prefer to play Loot Hoarder over Novice Engineer because you're going to get the draw from Loot Hoarder most of the time anyways. Nobody's going to silence this card. River Crocodile, another card that's on the fence. Why isn't it scrolling down? Oh, there it is. Doesn't really get played. It only gets played in like Beast Hunter decks and the very rare Druid deck that might play Beasts. Other than that, it's just a 2/3 minion. Nothing special about it. Get rid of it if you can. I don't know if this card's even disenchantable or not, but Unstable Ghoul. This is another one of those, like it only belongs in one deck, and the only deck that I can think that it belongs into is the Grim Patron deck. Some of the Grim Patron decks don't even run this card, so this is another card that you could potentially get rid of. Youthful Brewmaster sees some play if you have if you're playing a mill deck. Youthful Brewmaster is used in conjunction with Cold Light Oracle to help mill your opponent. Pick it up, play it again, pick it up, play it again. Other than that, it's not used in any other deck currently. Alright, so we're moving on to the 3+ neutral commons that you should keep, should not disenchant. Acolyte of Pain. This card makes it occasionally into mage decks. You can ping it for 1, draw a card, it'll die, you'll draw another card. Occasionally you'll see it in a rogue deck, but not that often. So this is kind of like an on the fence kind of card. Blackwing Technician. This is played only in, obviously, dragon decks. It's a 3/5 for 3 if you can hit it with a dragon, which most of the time you can. It's a good card. It's a good card if you hit the battle cry. Earthen Ring Farseer. When the meta is very fast or a lot of like face damage kind of decks are being played, Earthen Ring Farseer makes it into some decks. Like, I think I run one in my like combo druid deck. Occasionally you'll see it in a few others, but yeah, it sees some play. If not, just keep it on your bench. Sometimes you'll play it, sometimes you won't. Next up is Harvest Golem. This card is currently outclassed. I mean, it's a mech. Don't get me wrong. You'll see it in mech decks, but it's currently outclassed by the Spider Tank. But the Harvest Golem is very sticky. It's like it does the same job as the Haunted Creeper, where it summons, a 2/1 damaged golem, which is also a mech. So, this is a gameplay style. Some people prefer Harvest Golem over Spider Tank, but most people run Spider Tank. Some people run both. It's up to you to decide, but I definitely keep this card. It's a good card. Next up is Jungle Panther. Jungle Panther I've seen in Hunter Beast decks, and I've also seen in the Druid Beast deck. It's a good minion to be there on turn 4 if you play it on turn 3. But again, this card gets outclassed by Shade of Naxxramas if you have it. Shattered Sun Cleric is very popular 3-drop in aggro decks, tempo decks. It's a 3/2, give minion +1/+1. It's a lot more valuable than you'd think. Giving a minion +1 health to have it survive is a huge tempo swing. It's a very good card. Makes it into a lot of decks. Spider Tank is the new mech. It's not new, but it's the mech card. It's a 3/4 for 3 mana. Its stats are unreal, unmatched. 3/4 for 3 mana is the best that you can get as far as stats goes. This card makes it into mech decks, makes it into non-mech decks because the stats are so strong. It's a very popular card. Tinkertown Technician. If you're playing a mech deck, you're playing Tinkertown Technician. If you hit it, it's 4/4 for 3. And you get a spare part in your hand. It's high tempo card. More often than not, you'll get a 4/4. Wolf Rider I marked as on the fence. This card's used for face damage, very high aggro oriented decks, primarily face hunter. Occasionally you see it in a mage, aggro mage or something like that. Okay, I'm getting on to the 4-drops now. Chillwind Yeti. Same general premise as the Spider Tank. 4/5 stats for 4 mana are very good stats. Best stats you can get without a drawback. Obviously, we're going to be seeing Hungry Dragon in a second. But it's a very good card. It's run in a lot of decks. It's either between this card or the Sunjin Shield Masta, and it depends on whether you need a taunt in the current meta. It's a gameplay style call again. All right, wish I could talk. Dark Iron Dwarf. Give a minion +2 attack for this turn. This card is a very, very, very good all-around card. This card's used in aggro. Occasionally you'll see it in tempo. Not really used in control too much. But yeah, it's a good card. You know, you can do some things with it. Priest can do like Shadow Word Death instead of just adding 2 attack to your own minion. Little tricks with it, not too much. Dread Corsair. It's not really a 4-drop. When this card gets played, it's in a warrior deck, occasional paladin deck. Rarely you'll see it in a rogue deck. This card is usually played at under 3, usually under 3 mana. So it's usually like 2 mana or 1 mana or 0 mana. This is a tempo card too. You'll never play this card as a 4 mana 3/3 with taunt because you're probably losing the game at that point if you have to do that. But yeah, it's a good card. It makes it into a few decks here and there. I marked it as on the fence, but now that I think about it, it does make it into like two-ish decks that you might currently see. So it might be a keep around. I'm not sure. Gnomish Inventor. This card's used a lot. I've seen it in Grim Patron Warrior. I've seen it in Shaman decks. It shows up here and there from now and then. If you're having card draw problems, this is a very solid card to play. 4 health really, you know, sets it up. I mean, the stats for a 4 mana card aren't very good, but it surprisingly enough, 4 health is pretty difficult to remove. Okay, let me put it this way. You have a 4 health minion on the board. You play Gnomish Inventor, or something close to 4 health. Gnomish Inventor doesn't seem like a threat. So Gnomish Inventor actually, for most of the time, it sticks around. So this card does get played more often than not. I like it. It's okay. I would keep it around. I wouldn't necessarily call it a must keep. I think I accidentally marked it as a must keep. But it's definitely a keeper. It makes it into a few decks. Okay, moving on, we have the Hungry Dragon. Summon a 1-cost minion for your opponent. Usually the 1-cost minion is a... What's the average? I don't know what the average stats on a 1-cost minion is. I think it's like 1, 1, 2. Or something like that. So, Hungry Dragon's played in Dragon decks. It's not played in anything else. You might play it in a mage deck, but that'd be weird. Yep. So you summon a 1-cost minion. You can't really play this card from behind, and It's like it's a niche card for a niche kind of decks, you know, dragon decks. I don't know really off the top of my head if dragon decks really even play this card, so but we'll leave it here. Mechanical Yeti. This card makes this card is in mech decks, especially decks that require spare parts. Mage decks that run Archmage Antonidas will probably prefer to run Mechanical Yeti over Piloted Shredder. Mechanical Yeti generally takes a backseat to Piloted Shredder. People prefer Piloted Shredder over Mechanical Yeti, but in some cases Mechanical Yeti's in there with Piloted Shredder, or if you need spare parts, you'll play Mechanical Yeti. Piloted Shredder is the #1 4-drop. When its death rattle is play a 2-cost minion. 2-cost minions stats are generally 2/2, so you're getting 6/5 worth of stats for 4 mana. It's a mech. It's hard to remove. It's very sticky. Sometimes it can save your ass. You'll play it, and you really need a Doomsayer to come out, and it comes out and wins you the game or whatever. You know, it's a little bit RNG based, but for the most part, you'll get a 2/2 creature. Maybe a Haunted Creeper. That'd be nice. Okay, so now Sunjin's Shield Masta. This card's a good keep around. This card's used when there's a lot of aggro in the meta and you want to slow the game down. This gives you a wall for them to hit their creatures into. Between this and Chillwind Yeti, some people prefer this. Some people prefer the Yeti, but like I said, if you're facing a lot of aggro, this card will make it in over the Yeti. Anti-Killbot is used in a lot of decks. It's Anti-Killbot. Anti-Killbot. Yeah, whatever. Handlock. A lot of control classes run one of this. Helps prolong the game. Helps you bump you out of combo range from druids. Avoiding freeze mages, avoiding Grim Patron warriors. You'll see this card pretty frequently. Blackwing Corruptor is I think this is an auto include in dragon decks. It's like a cheaper version of Fire Elemental from my Shaman deck. You know, if you're holding a dragon, deal 3 damage. What's Fire Elemental stats? I think it's a 6/5 for 6, and you deal 3 damage. So this is very comparable to that card. Fire Elemental is an awesome card. So if you can, this makes it into your dragon deck. If you can hit it, great. If you can't, you know, whatever. It's a 5/4 for 5, which is kind of poor, but more often than not, you'll hit it. Spectral Night. Occasionally, you'll see this card in druid decks. In the 5 slot, I think people prefer to play Sledge Belcher over this card currently, but if you're tempo or if you're more tempo oriented, you'll play Spectral Night. This is a keeper. You keep this card on your bench. It'll fill in a slot occasionally. Stranglethorn Tiger. This card's obviously played in Hunter Beast decks. I've seen it in some combo decks where they'll play it out and then they'll buff the crap out of it. You know, some weird combo decks where Paladin will play Blessing of King? No, not Kings. What's the one that... I forget. The one that doubles the attack, and they'll make it something ridiculous and hit you in the face for it. It avoids Flame Strike. It avoids all, like, AoEs. It's pretty sticky. It'll be there next turn. It's more uncommon, though. You won't see it that very often. Dragonoid Crusher. This card is used in dragon decks. I don't know if dragon decks use this. This might be too slow. Tempo dragon decks, I've seen it. Like, I think I've tried out Crypt's Tempo Priest Dragon deck, and this is your big drop at the end there. It's not used that often. It's pretty niche. You can disenchant it if you want. If you're not running a dragon deck, it's a disenchant. Volcanic Drake. This is used in dragon decks. I believe this is an auto include. It's almost never played at 6. You're gonna trade and get it usually for 4. Again, this is on the fence. If you're not running a dragon deck, you can just disenchant it. Alright, so this covers the neutral commons that you should keep for your in your card collection. Everything else you can disenchant. Keep an eye out for my next videos. I'm going to be covering each individual class, which cards to keep, which cards are junk, and you should disenchant. And I'll see you next time.